Morning and welcome to Focus on the News. We've got a special program this morning. We're really delighted to have our friend Jose Vega, who is with us. Jose is doing some really fascinating work. He's with the Schiller Institute, and he travels all around the country. And one of the things that he is doing is trying to awaken our young people to the idea that they don't just have to sit back and take whatever outrages our government imposes on us, but they can literally push back. Now, it's not the kind of pushback that is what we see out on the streets with with some of these very negative organizations, but as a representative of the Schiller Institute, which is a very fine organization which advocates for peace, he has gone out and with tremendous courage and tenacity, he has confronted some of these two-faced political figures, whether they're Republican or Democrat. Most of them are Democrats right at this time, but he doesn't hesitate to go after the Republicans who are talking out of both sides of their mouths and pretending that they want peace, and yet it's sort of this dystopian idea that we achieve the perpetual peace through perpetual war. It's the same sort of Orwellian newspeak. And so, Jose, it's good to have you with us. We're very proud of what you're doing.
Well, thank you kindly, Senator, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy we got the connection working now, and the show's good now. And just on that comment, I get that a lot. Why is it that you only mostly do Democrats? Well, it's because I live in New York. If I lived in Texas, it'd be a different story. Although I am proud to say that some people have confronted people like John Bolton and Dan Crenshaw and some of these other what they call rhinos. And I confronted Mike Pompeo when he came to Yale. And so I had put my newly acquired license to work. I wanted to show you two of our most recent interventions, and if possible, although I know we're on limited time, so we'll get right to it, but I wanted to show you our intervention on Nancy Pelosi first.
Yes, and just before you do, I want to mention that that Mike Pompeo has just announced that he's dropping out of the presidential race, and I'm not sure how much your intervention had to do with it, but I'm sure that it was one of the elements that made this very, very warlike individual decide that he's going to back out and not take this on. So
maybe he knew I would be at his announcement party or something and said, never mind. Yeah. Okay, so I just want to set the scene real quick of what I'm about to play. This is Nancy Pelosi and Paul Krugman. So that's Nancy Pelosi on the left and Paul Krugman on the right. Paul Krugman is a Nobel Prize winning economist, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. And she's taking, at the point that we stand out, this is about the beginning, she is taking a question about the 2008 financial crash. And she's talking, this is what she says, it was like trekking through the depths of hell that not even Dante would dare write about. And then at that point, that's when my friend comes in, and then we start the intervention.
Pelosi, that's a very good place for you, in the depths of hell. Because for some reason, you have a very bad obsession of getting us into war. Hey, why is it that you did not admit that there were no WMDs in Iraq? You lured us into a war in Iraq. You got us into an invasion in Afghanistan. Now over 90% of those people are impoverished and are dying. Why don't you tell the truth about Nord Stream? Why did we destroy Nord Stream? We're leaving millions of China's without energy. You have a knack for getting us into war. People like you should be arrested. You are a war criminal.
All right, so that was my friend Kynan. And then he gets dragged away, and then I stand up. So then I start by saying, hey, Congresswoman, and this is happening as he's being dragged away.
Hey, Congresswoman, I came to see a warmonger, but you're a sad old drunk. What happened? When you went to Taiwan, were you looking for Ukraine? Did we blow up the Nord Stream on accident or on purpose? Did you know about that? Aren't you supposed to be part of the indictment tomorrow? You're a war criminal by definition, Miss Pelosi. You got some nerve. Is that why you're here in Manhattan? Is that why you're here? Because you're getting indicted tomorrow, you goddamn war criminal? How many people have died in your fucking name? Huh? How many people have died because of Iraq? All of you forgot about Iraq? Iran, Libya, Syria.
And just real quick, this was happening one day before the indictment done by Alvin Bragg on Donald Trump. So that was talked about in the talk, and so that's the intervention we did on Nancy Pelosi. And the coverage that it got us was, we were on Fox News. Jesse Waters covered it, and he made the point where he said, why is it that only Fox News is covering these interventions? Why isn't the New York Times covering this? This is happening in their backyard. And I was really happy to see that, right? And then he compared it to when Trump was in the presidential debate against Jeb Bush, and he was calling out Jeb Bush and his brother for saying, the Bushes lied us into Iraq. It was the most disastrous war of our time.
Well, I think we certainly need a pushback, and I think particularly the Democrats are really taken aback because they have used these strategies for a long time. There was a time that they were very confrontational against the Vietnam War, and it gave them this aura that somehow they were the party of peace. Well, they've been anything but that. And in fact, if you really look at it realistically, the war party is not really Democrat or Republican. It's a combination of individuals. They tend to be heavily on the Democrat side, but there are certainly Republicans who are just knee-jerk war people. And you look at John Bolton, who's sort of the classic example of what we've got. But I think it's important to have these interventions so that people don't just get lulled into a sense of complacency, but the interventions make them think. And they may hear, okay, weapons of mass destruction. That's right. We did go into Iraq. We killed 1 million people or more and destroyed a great civilization for no reason. And I think the people who took us there knew exactly what they were doing. I think they knew that there were no weapons of mass destruction. It was a hoax. It was just a means of getting us in there. And we're doing similar things with Ukraine today. A lot of that is just a big hoax that was built up, and now we're doing it. So what else have you got? Have you got another one to show us, or?
I do. I sure do. And just before I pull that one up, I do want to say, to Pelosi's credit, she did vote no for the war in Iraq for us to invade, but she would admit, I think this was on 60 Minutes where she admitted this, but I can't remember where she admitted this. She said that she knew, and that many of her colleagues knew, at the time there were no weapons of mass destruction, but that they went with it anyway for national security at the time. And then also when she was asked, well, why didn't you impeach Bush? Because, he had committed an impeachable offense. She said, well, we needed to move forward as a country. So, that's somebody who deserved to get a beat down. And also, if you go to San Francisco today, that's her district, right? This is one of the most powerful Democrats in the country, third in line to be president. She can't take care of her own district. It's terrible. When you walk around her district, there's just tents and homeless people, and there's feces everywhere. I'm not exaggerating. That's what it is. It's like on the streets everywhere, and she can't do anything to fix her own district. I mean, this must weigh heavily on her conscience. And so when my friend stood up and says that's where you belong, in the depths of hell, it was also I was also Easter. It was about to be Easter weekend, I believe, a few days before Easter, and Dante's Commedia, the Inferno, is set on the day of Good Friday, I believe. Yeah, right, because it's a 3-day journey. So it's Friday, and then he gets out on Sunday on the resurrection. That's when Dante climbs out of hell and goes to purgatory. So, you know, to add a little bit of an artistic and spiritual and poetic element to this. But yes, I do have the other intervention here if you'd like me to play that now.
Okay, good. Let's do it.
Okay, so just to set the scene here, this was Diane Sayre and myself, and this was in a room full of journalists, Russiagate fanatics. Masha Gessen, who is a transgender, they go by they, them, even though I called them a she. And, you know, you can tell already how the language is getting butchered just by trying to figure out what a they is. As Dave Chappelle says, when you're saying they, are you talking about one they or many they? And so Masha Gessen is a Russiagate fanatic and still believes it to this day. David Remnick, the editor of the New Yorker, was also there, and the room was also full of a bunch of mainstream journalists. So then Diane Sayre gets up and she starts, and then I follow. So here we go.
Do you have any idea how stupid we look to the rest of the world? We have Julian Assange in prison for 4 years, and we're here talking about journalism. Ukraine is doing everything you're accusing Russia of doing. They've banned the Russian language. They have outlawed political parties. One of the things, no, we should talk about this because we're about to be perhaps in a nuclear war. The U.S. is going fascist. I don't know if you've read this Resist Act. We have Assange in prison. We invaded Iraq 20 years ago and killed 1 million people based on lies. And no one cares about that. They should be here to hear me because they're here to tell a bunch of lies. I should be on the program. The United States is in deep trouble. We have nothing to offer the world. China and Russia are bringing peace. They chilled out the situation between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The war in Yemen is ending. No, you don't have any idea how stupid you look to the world. How stupid everyone here in their pomposity. We're going to run around talking about democracy.
We won't be able to discuss that.
That's
can
good.
You leave it for the discussion?
I don't think I will be allowed to ask questions.
You will
here.
be allowed to ask a question.
I would like to
Just
ask about how we can say what we say about Russia when Julian Assange is sitting in prison. No one cares about this.
It's okay that you ask questions, but it's okay to ask it at the time of the event when we have it.
Hey, where's Seymour Hersh? Shouldn't Seymour Hersh be here? I mean, why we got this CIA acid Vivian Goldman wannabe here instead of Seymour Hersh? Here's a question. Did we blow up the Nord Stream or not? Did we blow up the Nord Stream or not? It's a simple question, yes or no? I'm just asking a question because everybody wishes they knew something different. What about Russiagate? She was completely wrong about Russiagate. I mean, let's just be for real. You were wrong. Everybody was wrong about Russiagate, okay? Robert Mueller took away the case. Think about that for a second. Now, all of you are wrong. Nobody here has even said a word about us blowing up Nord Stream. And now what? You have a State Department official talking about banning all Russian media from around the world. I mean, where's the outreach against that? Or Julian Assange? No, I'm not going to be quiet. Because frankly, no, I'm not. You're going to have to take me away because I'm here to expose the truth about you. You're a CIA asset who said nothing about Seymour Hersh, the biggest story of this century, and nobody said anything. Instead, you're all here masturbating at how great journalists you are. Nothing revolutionary has come from any of your articles. What's wrong? Why won't you take the question?
Would you please?
You stood up to Putin, right?
Sir.
You won't answer about Seymour Hirsch?
Sir,
What's
sir,
going on?
sir,
I thought he was
sir,
an amazing journalist.
Sir.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right, sir. Please, can you please?
Nothing revolutionary here. Just a bunch of old talking heads, outdated.
Yep. So that was that.
Well, they certainly don't want to talk about Nord Stream and the fact that that the White House ordered the destruction of the 3 pipelines coming from Russia to Germany, and which was clearly an act of war, not only against Russia, but it was an act of war against Germany, one of our closest allies. There's no question that it was done. Seymour Hirsch is really an unimpeachable journalistic source. He's probably the finest journalist in foreign affairs of our age, and everything in the world is being done to just sort of hush it up and pretend that he hasn't gotten all of the intelligence on it and he doesn't know the details. The fact is, I mean, he laid it out in such enormous detail that it's unimpeachable. There is no question that the United States deliberately cut the arterial lifeline of Europe deliberately to make them dependent on the United States for energy and everything else. So in any event, we're really pleased with what you're doing, and there certainly are some of our Republican friends who can stand a little heat in their kitchen also.
Yes, that's right. I know we're coming up on time, but I wish we had more time to talk about these Pentagon papers, because I think the Pentagon papers, some analysts are saying that this is what's called a controlled leak, where you kind of admit what's already known without being known. For example, that there are boots on the ground in Ukraine, right? That came out in the leaks, but we already knew there were boots on the ground because they had admitted kind of, they're just there to supervise things and make sure the Ukrainians know how to use the equipment. And then they've made this 21-year-old Air Force guard a patsy. And I don't know what his intentions were in leaking this, whether he's with them or not. Point is, I do think there should be more transparency, but I also understand that there has to be a balance between national security. But overall, I think the Pentagon papers, or the new Pentagon papers, are about oversaturating the conversation so that people forget about Seymour Hirsch. That's what it is. So that this way people can say, well, why am I going to read Seymour Hirsch when I can trust MSNBC a whole lot more that have actual leaks? And I think what Diane and I did was really important with bringing this up to the journalists so that they know that, no, people want to know about Seymour Hirsch. People want to know about the Nord Stream bombing.
Sure. We have some interesting comments from, hopefully I pronounced the name right, Lima Lisovska. And she's talking about the tremendous influence of the military-industrial complex on the senators and some of the congressmen, and talking about why are the journalists not discussing some of these things. And there's no doubt that the lobbying influence on Washington for war is just enormous, and there's a lot of money at stake. We know about Hunter Biden and his involvement with Burisma, where he was making enormous sums of money, where he didn't even speak the language. He knew nothing about the business that he was in, but he had a rich daddy who was influential and could order that the chief prosecutor be fired when the prosecutor was looking into some of the misconduct going on in Burisma. And so it is interesting. I feel as badly for the Ukrainian soldiers as for the Russians. I just hate to see all of the slaughter. And but I know that in Ukraine we are creating a nation of widows and orphans. There are not going to be any husbands when it's over. There are not going to be any young men in Ukraine. There will still be in Russia because it's a bigger place and they can absorb the casualties. Ukraine cannot. And I think the reason that we're wanting to drag it out and to force the Ukrainians to fight as long as possible is that there's a percentage that's taken by the Zelensky government, the government officials. They rake some money off. The generals in Ukraine rake some money off. And then you've got these globalist oligarchs, the boys from Davos, I call them, and they're in there and they're getting a cut from all of these military expenditures. And the Swiss banks are riding high, a lot of money going into Swiss banks and banks in Panama and different places. And the people who make the money are not the guys who are out there fighting the battles. It's the people who would never think for a moment of putting their lives in danger, but they work the deals, they make the profits, they get the graft and the corruption, and there's such vast sums of money at stake here that they have got to keep this going as long as possible because the money stops when the war stops. So they got to keep it rolling.
That's right. I agree with you 100%, Senator.
Well, listen, we're going to have to cut it off at this point, but I appreciate everyone being with us. And Jose, I encourage you to keep up the good work, and we will be back here on Wednesday for another episode of Focus on the News.